You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. Today, I've got Robert Charles, who will be sitting down with me. Bobby Charles is AMAC's spokesman. He also served in the Reagan and Bush 41 White House, and he was Assistant Secretary of State under Colin Powell. So I'll enjoy speaking with Bobby. But folks, it's been almost 100 days since Joe Biden was put in the White House. In just 3 months, Democrats are threatening to pack the Supreme Court, to eliminate the filibuster, to abolish the Electoral College, to grant statehood to Washington, D.C., to federalize voting laws, and to enact a labor bill that would overturn right-to-work statutes in 27 states. The minute Joe Biden stepped into the Oval Office, he immediately started to eliminate the policies that President Trump initiated, whether they were good or bad. The most damaging of these reversals is the reversal of President Trump's immigration measures that were so clearly working. Instead, now we see a humanitarian and national security crisis at our southern border. Biden is also making things worse by regularly declaring that the United States is systematically racist. And he's saying that any state that wants to tighten up their voting laws to ensure voter integrity is Jim Crow on steroids. It almost seems like Joe Biden and those around him hate the United States of America. For example, Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield, she said that white supremacy is weaved into America's founding documents. Let us take a quick look at some of the disastrous things that Biden has done in his first 100 days. On the immigration front, the largest number of unaccompanied children ever at the border created massive overcrowding at customs and border protection facilities, and it has set off a mad scramble for temporary space at convention centers, at military bases, and at other large venues that can house these children. Biden has yet to tell us his plan to manage the crisis, except to propose that billions of dollars be spent to address the root causes in Central America. Joe Biden ended travel restrictions on people from several Muslim majority countries. He stopped the funding and building of the border wall. He reversed Trump's public charge rule discouraging immigrants from using public benefits and instead incentivized people to come into the United States illegally. Joe Biden reversed the transgender military ban, allowing military personnel to transition while on active duty. Now, as we all know, the federal government pays for medical treatment for our brave men and women in the military. But this now means that you and I, the taxpayer, will be paying for gender reassignment. Joe Biden rescinded the Keystone XL oil pipeline permit. He rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. He banned new oil and gas leases on federal lands and offshore waters. He is trying to roll back President Trump's cuts to corporate tax. He is withdrawing all troops from Afghanistan. And Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic relief bill dwarfs FDR's New Deal in terms of total cost to the American taxpayer. President Biden ushered in a wave of welfare programs, unseen since the introduction of Medicare and food stamps. Biden backed the bid for D.C. statehood, which would hand the Democrats 2 seats in the Senate in the foreseeable future. And he expressed support for weakening or even undoing the legislative filibuster, a 150-year-old tradition. And he ordered a commission to study reforms to the Supreme Court. He favors packing the Supreme Court. Biden said that he would sign H.R. 1. This is a vast election reform bill that would eliminate voter ID and allow for universal mail-in voting. Joe Biden supports the teaching of critical race theory, which creates a toxic environment for our children, and it exasperates the problems that it claims to improve. Joe Biden inherited a successful vaccine development and a thought-out distribution program from Donald Trump, but he claims it his own victory. Biden's approval rating is at about 54%, which is the third worst rating in history. Yes, his ratings are higher than President Trump's were when Trump was in for his first 100 days. But Biden doesn't have the media and big tech hammering him day in and day out and accusing him as a Russian asset. Folks, it's clear that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not putting America first. What they are really doing is destroying our country right in front of our eyes. The bad policies that the Biden administration continues to put in place are slowly eroding our great nation. Folks, we'll be keeping you updated on Biden's policies, good or bad. They can all be found on our website and on our newly developed AMAC News App. If you haven't downloaded the News App, I encourage you to do so. Very easy to do. Go to the App Store on your phone and look for AMAC Inc. It's a red icon. Download that app. You won't be bombarded with ads, and we don't collect any information. I want to thank everyone listening today for your AMAC membership. There's such strength in numbers. Stay tuned. I'll be right back with Bobby Charles.
Hello, Bobby. Great to have you with us here today. I was just telling our listeners that, boy, oh boy, it's been just 100 days since Joe Biden has been in office as president, and it feels like a different world. It's hard to imagine how much things have changed over this short period of time. And I was sort of highlighting to folks so that they could understand that some of the failures that I see are not just with immigration, but his economic decisions, his foreign relations decisions, his Joe Biden has been sort of hell-bent on trying to convince everyone in America that America is a racist nation. He's been such a divider, in my opinion. I want to talk to you a little bit about law enforcement, Bobby. You served as the Assistant Secretary of State to Colin Powell, and in that role, you managed global law enforcement support. Now, we talked about your time in Iraq and Afghanistan, but you spent a good deal of time in places like Colombia, Bolivia, Peru, and Central America in the Western Hemisphere. So we know the illegal immigration is chiefly coming from Central America, and that Vice President Harris, who seems to be everywhere but the border, which infuriates me, is supposed to be addressing this border crisis. Now, Bobby, you wrote a hard-hitting piece this week saying, in effect, that she is not just out to lunch, but has her facts wrong. You say that Trump did the right thing, and Biden, Harris are now blaming Trump. That is the height of hypocrisy, that Trump's policies help Central America. Can you explain that?
Yes. So, Rebecca, you put your finger on something that in many ways is emblematic of a bigger problem. And it, of course, is kind of like telescoping the 100 days of lies and false assumptions about America into one issue. You're absolutely right. I spent a lot of time, and actually before I served as Assistant Secretary with Powell, managing those issues in these countries. I actually did oversight for 5 years under Newt Gingrich's house. And we went down into these countries and saw how did it work? How was it not working? And let me tell you, in 2018, Donald Trump, and these numbers are just vital. In 2018, Donald Trump's policies created $140 million in economic activity in the three key countries, which were Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, generated 30,000 jobs, trained 1,700 human rights workers, worked with 1,000 civil society organizations, management improvement in 350 courts, reached 120,000 at-risk youth, 9,000 judicial personnel, collected 106,000 kilograms of illegal drugs, all of which is to say, and by the way, in the major cities in those three countries, dropped the homicide rate from between 40 and 73% in just that 1 year. So now comes the next thing that happened. Donald Trump said, look, we're expecting some cooperation here from you three countries because we got some illegal caravans coming north. And he tapered back those benefits. Bingo. immediately the three countries said, okay, we will cooperate with you. They signed 15 independent treaties with the United States saying, we will cooperate with you. And what did Donald Trump do? He then turned the spigot back on again and generated 31,000 jobs in the last, between March 2019 and March 2020. He went back to the mission again of support for these countries. So what does this mean? This is just like anything else in the world. It's a carrot and stick diplomacy. The way it works is that you ask accountability of people. You give when you say you will give, and you keep your word on that, trying to create self-reliance. And on the flip side, if they disappoint you, if after you've trusted them, they break your trust, then you taper back and you say, hey, we're going to stop. So the bottom line is this is emblematic in many ways of the lies that we're getting told. Kamala Harris, these are all public documents. Go on and look at the Trump Central America strategy. These are unclassified documents. Harris actually got these as a senator, the reports that demonstrate what I'm telling you. And yet, what do? They say, no, this is all Trump's fault. And by the way, our open invitation and no more deportations, and we're going to house all the minors and all of this, open borders, sanctuary cities. It has nothing to do with the fact that we're now being overrun by illegal aliens. Yeah, it has everything to do with the fact that we're being overrun.
Yeah, and I know that you literally ran some of the programs like Plan Colombia in the early 2000s. So you do seem the right one to trust on this. Bobby, you shared some of the facts, some of the real numbers, and you showed us what works and what does not across Latin America when it comes to turning down both illegal immigration and drugs. But what do you think that Biden and Harris are doing wrong? I mean, I know that they're ignoring the facts. How do we get them to see the light?
Yeah. I guess I would say, there are many in the listening audience, viewing audience, who would say, well, this is all intentional. This is intended to create illegal voters. This is intended to create greater dependence on the federal government so that the Democrats get a longer range strategy for dominance in the future, one party rule and all that. I would say that the average American has an awful lot of throws still. And the average American should be reaching out to their representative in Congress and saying, look, I don't care what else you do, but stop things that don't work. Okay. And this is something that's undermining citizenship in the United States. It's undermining our economy. It's undermining our ability to keep rule of law. And so we should be addressing that very directly. And I frankly think, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so at the end of the day, if people do speak up, they will be heard. What can you and should you do? It's a combination. I mean, this is like 101. This is very, very easy policy. What don't you do? You don't create incentives for illegal immigration. So you don't open the border, and you don't say, just come on in and we'll dispatch you to the heartland. And in some cases, we'll give you a court date 2 years out. And in some cases, we won't give you any court date. Just keep coming. Okay. We don't do that. That's a bad idea. We don't set up sanctuary cities where and states like California, where law enforcement is vilified by the Democrats. No, we respect law enforcement. We expect them to local law enforcement to cooperate with federal law enforcement in order to deport people who are criminal aliens. Okay. And then on the flip side, you go back to what Trump was doing. What was Trump doing? He was saying, let's work with each other in a civil, responsible, accountable way. We will help train you so that your economies become stable and collect foreign investment so that you can have your own thriving economy, just like we had a thriving economy in 2019. And we will encourage you, but you have to help us. And Rebecca, the amazing thing is there's a lot of theory out there about what might work, but this is something that we know does work. This actually generated really good results for the American people.
Well, that's why it's hard to truly believe that Joe Biden is truly putting American people first. I do think that he is looking out for his party over the American people. And I personally feel that the reason why he's turning a blind eye to this massive illegal immigration, at the border, which has become so dangerous, is ultimately to ensure more votes for the Democratic Party. I want to share something, a quick video here, because we see how Joe Biden seems to be so soft on crime, and he's backing those voices that are saying let's defund police. I have a video of a 1989 speech. Now, 1989 is a while ago, and I understand people can change perspective. But in this particular clip, he responds to Bush 41 when Bush 41 addressed the Congress, and he attacked Bush for being too soft on crime and not having enough police on the streets or enough prison cells. Let's roll that tape.
Now, I'm going to point out some specific things, 6 of them, that we find inadequate about the president's plan. I think the president has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising tide of violence in America, and that's what it is, violence. First, we have to join together to ensure that drug dealers are punished swiftly, surely, and severely. And in line with what the president is calling for, we have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs, and there'd be no market for them. Let's take a look at what the real problem is. It's not just how many people are using drugs. As the president said, the number of people using drugs, cocaine in particular, is down in our country. That's true. But the violence associated with drugs is spewing out all over America, and that's terrible. I know it's hard to believe, but this very day, violent drug offenders will commit more than 100,000 crimes on this day alone. And the sad part is that we have no more police in the streets of our major cities than we had 10 years ago. And what the president proposes won't help much. What he proposes is no increase over what the Congress has already approved last year. In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs, not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time. That's why right now, 6 out of every 10 criminals who are arrested on drug charges have their cases dropped. That's why we think the president should triple the commitment that he's made tonight for police, prosecutors, and judges for our cities and our states.
So, Bobby, you served in the Bush 41 White House. Was Joe Biden that different of a man then as he is today? And why would he make such a total and complete 180 change on his approach to law and order?
So let me tell you, Rebecca, that is the answer to your question is, yeah, he did a 180. Look, when I worked with Gingrich and the leadership in the House for 5 years, I negotiated most of the counter-narcotics law enforcement bills we did. Joe Biden and Senator Hatch and Senator Coverdell and Senator DeWine were all pro-law enforcement. Indeed, the Fraternal Order of Police and many others thoroughly counted on Joe Biden. And when I was training, this is the greatest irony of all, when I was working with Powell to train police in Iraq and Afghanistan and Colombia and all the other places in the world, Kosovo, where we train police, Joe Biden would call up to the 7th floor from the Senate, because he was in the Senate at the time, and he would want to know, what are all those metrics on law enforcement? Are we stabilizing those countries? How many law enforcement officers have we trained this month? And so that call would come into me, and I'd say, Senator, he didn't typically give me very much time to talk, but he would say, Senator, I'd say, yeah, we've got the metrics, here are the numbers. Trust me, we're pushing law enforcement strong in all these countries. Now, here's the irony. You were strong law enforcement in this country, and most law enforcement officers in leadership knew it at the time. Why? Because stability and rule of law are the right thing to be in favor of, all the things the Republicans are fighting for right now against this defund police nonsense. And he was an advocate for law enforcement around the world. But now you're going to say, no, give up on law enforcement in America?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 180 degrees would be about the right measure, Rebecca. And I think it's the radical left has basically taken him and swings him around like, he's on their leash. And so it's unfortunate. I mean, he can't even answer questions without getting double checked.
Thank you, Bobby. Another issue that you hit hard this week is the economy. Okay, and we see how the private sector is recovering, but that could change fast. While the economy is recovering now, based on businesses reopening in many states, if the Democrats keep spending trillions of dollars and then they raise taxes, I mean, you can say that we're destined for Jimmy Carter-style stagflation, which is a slowing economy dragged down by high taxes plus higher inflation, followed by even a possible jump in interest rates. I'm bracing for that. I know that this has happened before, but why do you think it could happen now? If you can sort of lay out the picture of how things are looking now, and what should Congress do to stop it?
Yep. So this is another great area, Rebecca, which affects all of us. There isn't a one of us who's in the listening and viewing viewership that isn't going to be directly affected by this. And what do we know right now, and then how can we reverse it? What we know right now is that the economy is slowly recovering. It's not recovering because of the government. A lot of the checks haven't even gone out. It's recovering because private sector, particularly small businesses, are saying, look, we want to get back to work, right? We like to work. We want our employees employed. We want them to have incomes. We care about the future, right? So that's what we're doing, and you know that well. The problem is that we have a confluence of things, which like little rivers coming together into a big river that are happening right now, and it's very predictable. I mean, one of my graduate degrees is in economics, and it's just 101. This is very predictable. When you have massive easy money, which is the Federal Reserve basically printing dollars in large numbers, supposedly to stimulate the economy. Well, it's stimulating the stock market for sure. When you have easy money and then you have massive fiscal spending, so trillions. We didn't even use the word trillions 10 years ago. Now we're using the word trillions all the time. And we've got another $2.3 trillion bill that's supposed to be social, cultural infrastructure coming. And we've got another $1 trillion for another program that he's got. And we've got a new green $1 trillion, and we've got more COVID $1 trillion. What's going to happen, and it's already beginning to happen. Look at the price at the pump, okay? It's already beginning to happen, is you're going to have a radical exponential increase in inflation. So that is bad enough, but there are two things happening in tandem with that. One is that the Democrats are going to try to trick the process, the legislative process, and raise taxes in one of these pending bills at the same time, particularly on small companies. They'll say it's on big companies, but it's really going to hit individuals. It's going to hit employment. It's going to raise taxes, and raise taxes are going to slow the economy. So you're going to have rising inflation. You're going to have a drop in employment. Because taxes are going to cause tremendous pain for the corporate community. And remember, what did Trump do? Trump lowered taxes so that we had a record unemployment rate. We had record employment in every single demographic. We're going to see the exact reverse of that. And then traditionally what happens is when inflation rates go up, the Federal Reserve uses a tool, interest rates, different interest rate structures, to slow the economy down. That is to say, you're not seeing real growth. You're seeing what they call nominal growth. You're seeing lots of inflation. The dollar bill itself becomes worth less. Your dollar that you earn every day buys less. And so because it buys less, because the prices are going up, typically unions go and say, hey, we got to get more money for our wages. And then you get this spiral upwards in inflation, even as you're seeing a spiral downwards in employment. And that really is stagflation. The interest rates, incidentally, are raised on private debt. So that's something we have to suffer. But it's also raised on the national debt. And we have $27 trillion in national debt. So now we end up paying more. The economy slows and inflation goes up. And I'm just going to say that, yes, historically, and part of our program here is always history. Historically, this is roughly what happened in the Jimmy Carter years. You ended up with double-digit inflation and double-digit unemployment. And it's very hard to get out of that cycle. And guess who got us out of that cycle?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan.
That's right. And, we pray that in 2024 we'll have a better president that'll help get us out of this, because this is, I don't see us going in any better direction. Do you, Bobby? Do you see things? Do you see us?
No,
it's almost like we're on a runaway train and we know where we're headed. I don't see that they're trying to stop.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. I want to ask you a few questions.
The only thing we can
go
right
ahead.
now,
finish up on that.
Yeah. I was just going to say, AMAC members know that the only thing we can really do now is to try to get our federal representatives to be responsible. And I know that's a tall order, but to tell them, look, stop this runaway spending.
That's
okay.
Right.
This runaway spending is going to hurt all of us. Just stop it. We don't need it.
That's right. Bobby, I want to touch on the Supreme Court. And, let me first just tee this up. We know that that Joe Biden is looking to kill or wants the legislative filibuster to be done away with. This is a 150-year-old tradition. That's not what he has said in the past. He also wants to pack the Supreme Court, and I want to share a video. This is two videos of Joe Biden speaking in '83 about how bad an idea it was to try to pack the Supreme Court. Let's roll that tape.
President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct. But it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question, for an entire decade, the independence of the most significant body, including the Congress, in my view, the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. The president had the right to do that. He was totally within his power, and his objective was seen clearly.
Bobby, I am, again, this is just a complete 180 here. This is a man who seemed to be very convicted that we should not pack the Supreme Court, that would be a bad idea. And today he wants to go ahead and do that. I am concerned to a great degree. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Rebecca, I think you and every American should be concerned. This is craven politics. I mean, how can you not look at this initiative of Supreme Court packing and say, look, you don't own the Supreme Court politically. You're one party effort, which has got the House and the Senate and the White House. You don't have the independent Supreme Court. So what do you want to do? You want to essentially pass unconstitutional bills like take away gun rights, take away free speech, take away worship rights, take away the rights of religious institutions, take away Fourth Amendment rights, take away states' rights. And then you want to pack the Supreme Court with 4 more justices because there's a 5-4 balance. And by the way, as you rightly said, Rebecca, we have had a 9-person Supreme Court for more than 150 years. You want to suddenly just do a power grab and pull down the Supreme Court and make it a Democrat court? No, that should revolt not only Republicans and not only moderate Democrats, that should revolt everyone in America. We don't politicize our Supreme Court. That is, that's sort of it's to the point of unethical and a point where, you know, I mean, when Franklin Roosevelt even mentioned this idea and tried to press it forward, Democrats poured out as well as Republicans and said, what are you doing? And in fact, it so scalded FDR that he delayed entrance into World War II because he was afraid that he had offended so many Americans. So no, it's a dead wrong. I think every American should speak up against packing the Supreme Court.
Well, again, it's not good for the people of America. It's not good for America in the long run. And Joe Biden, again, he's putting his own priorities above the American people. And I pray that more and more people see it and understand it, and people listen to this podcast and share this podcast with friends and family and let people know that there's an organization that is not afraid to speak about it. And I want to wrap up our time here together to really touch on fear, because we understand and we see how people are immobilized in fear. People make decisions out of fear. It is such a strong emotion, right? It really, and I just want to bring up, I have a pretty good question that I wanted to ask you here. Many people want to do something to stop these attacks on our nation's solvency. You mentioned it, our constitutional right to speak, to worship, to protect ourselves and families, and to protect our constitutional process. And so I love that you often say, have no fear. And you're such an encourager, Bobby. So I want you to share with people how, in your view, you see fear as such a killer, but what people can do really to you know, let me just say this. I have my mother, a lovely woman. She's almost 80 years old, and she's afraid I mean, and it's a real fear. It's a real fear that she goes to bed with at night. And it's a real fear that she lives with because she recognizes that the country is changing right before her very eyes. And she doesn't really know how it's going to get better. Now, I know we've got to vote better people in office, but how do people deal with all that's going on in this country, whether it be this critical race theory that we're seeing being taught in our schools, gang members that are roaming our streets. We're afraid just with COVID-19 alone and what we're hearing, wear your mask outside. Finally, the CDC said we don't have to wear our mask outside if we've been vaccinated. But it just seems to be such a hard time right now between the pandemic, our economy, and our change from a Trump who was so pro-America to Joe Biden who's anti-America, in my opinion. I think this fear is alive and well here in America, and I'm concerned about what fear does to people. So what would be some uplifting and positive advice that you might be able to share with people listening today?
So let me, say that that fear that you're describing, while it is very corrosive and it creates ambivalence and it creates a sense of hunkering down and wanting to stay clear of whatever's coming, it's not as novel as you might imagine. America has gone through periods of high fear before because of internal efforts to disrupt the country, in terms of external efforts to disrupt the country. In fact, being directly attacked. I mean, you don't have to go to 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or some of the earlier occasions in which we've had to really rally. And I think the interesting part is that there is something in the pioneer American. There is something deep in us that has to do with it's in the naturalized Americans. It's in the patriotic Americans who serve in the military and in law enforcement. It's in patriotic Americans everywhere. We all have it within ourselves to rally against fear. And we know that, by the way. We know that because in our own lives, in various ways, we have had to rally against some or another fear. It might have been a health fear. It might have been something we're afraid of for a family member, okay? So here's what I will tell you. Historically, the great hope comes from people like Ronald Reagan, or even on foreign soil, just re-listening to addresses by Winston Churchill during the Battle of Britain, understanding that the human nature, all of the things we consider the Bill of Rights are actually distilled natural law. Those things are innate in us, the desire to express ourselves, the desire to protect our family, the desire to not be impeded or trampled upon by the government. Okay, those are all innate things. What we have to do is remember as a country that the vast majority of us still, I would say 3/4 of America, if not more, fully appreciate that. A lot of them didn't vote, and they should have, but we understand that if we rally together to support those rights, they will not be taken from us. And I'll give you an example, a visual example to bring back to mind of courage in this category. China suppresses human rights from left to right, particularly Christians and Muslims and everybody. They suppress, they've got surveillance everywhere. In 1989, there was a group of students who came forward on Tiananmen Square and said, enough is enough. We're going to try, people don't remember that, but I vividly remember it, that we are going to try to bring a degree of democracy here and self-representation. And we're going to, so China, of course, has gone far to the horrible communist left, where some of the people in the Democratic Party would like to take America. But I will never forget, on June 5th, 1989, a single individual, a single man, stood in front of a column of tanks and said, in effect, run me over. I am liberty. I'm not moving. And the tanks didn't run him over. Now, we didn't see change in Tiananmen because they crushed that protest. That's what the Chinese do. That's what they're trying to do right now. But what we did see is the spirit of an individual, even in a deeply suppressed state, even in a communist state, say, I will not let fear govern me. Now, we're in a better position here. But the beautiful part is that if we rally within ourselves and among ourselves, we can preserve all those freedoms. And people like your mother and my mother and a lot of other people will say, thank God it really is the America I always believed. We have that pioneer depth. We have that ability to speak truth, because speaking truth to power is the skeleton key that unlocks the door to freedom.
Amen. I have a beautiful, large poster photo of that man that stood before those tanks. It's here in our office, and what's so lovely that you brought that up was that that was a poster that my father had framed. And he brought me over to that poster after he had framed it, and he said, "Do you know the story?" And he went on to tell me how powerful one man, one woman can be, and the resolve that we have in our heart. And I just want to remind people that are listening, I do believe that America is the greatest nation on earth. And I do believe that our Bill of Rights and our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, what we have is woven in there are these inalienable, God-given rights. And so we need to remember that, because people are coming at us and telling us that our Declaration is racist, that our Constitution is racist. We even heard a quote that the UN ambassador referenced America's documents as being inherently racist. And so when people begin to hear that or read that, you may second guess, but I want to remind people that is a lie. It's not the truth. And, on our website, we have these documents. You can go ahead and find them. We encourage people to comment on our articles on our website, because we're bringing to you information on the truth, and we're sharing with you a lot of history. Bobby, you're doing a phenomenal job providing us with great content and articles. So for people, you've said it over and over. I've read it over and over. I encourage people to go to our website for good articles that you can share with friends and families to sort of counter that argument that America is racist. It is not a racist nation.
One other thing.
Go ahead. Yeah. Parting thoughts, Bobby.
One other thing one simple parting thought, if you've decided ahead of time that whatever your minority is or whatever your position in life is, that you need to be a victim and that that's your best way forward, it's hard to dissuade you. If you've decided that I can lift myself up by my bootstraps, life is full of adversity, and I will make my way forward regardless, and I will take advantage of these freedoms that are embodied in the Constitution, and I will do my best with them, then you're going to have a happy life. I just will respond to that UN ambassador saying that our documents are racist. Our Constitution and our Bill of Rights are somehow racist. If they're racist, I would like you to explain to me why they've been adopted by 170 countries worldwide, including almost all of the African continent, including, in fact, even some of the communist countries take our documents and imagine, even though they won't fulfill those freedoms, that those are, in fact, the paradigm. No, we are not just but the inflection point in recent human activity. Our Constitution, the boldness of throwing everything to the wind and saying, we will defend these rights to the death, has become so persuasive that those are the formative documents with minimal changes that have been adopted all over the globe. So if we're racist, then I guess the world is racist. And I guess those documents, everybody has just somehow missed it. No, they're not racist. They are the embodiment of individual empowerment. And that is a great hope for everyone.
Excellent. Bobby, thank you so much for joining us here today. So enjoy it and love our show, Reb and Rob, on truth and history. So for all of you tuning in, be sure to tune in again next week when I'm back here with Bobby Charles. Bobby, thanks so much for joining. Have a great day. And for everyone listening, don't forget to join or renew your AMAC membership at amac.us. Thank you all for joining. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.